I'm not saying romance is all that I think about, but it is at least 80%. When I was reading the most popular fiction books of the past decade for a video recently, I was thinking to myself, what are my best books of the past decade? And more importantly, what are my best romances of the past decade? What romances do I think exemplify each year of the past decade? So I picked a book for each of the years, 2015, 2016, you get the point. All contemporary romances, and I'm freaking thrilled to share my list with you. So thrilled, in fact, that I had to center and calm myself before I decided to sit down and film this video. It's actually a part of my filming ritual at this point, and I have the sponsor of today's video, Calm, to thank for that. Calm is the #1 app for sleep and meditation, giving you the power to calm your mind and change your life. Everyone has different challenges in life, and mental health is just not one size fits all. Calm offers a wide range of content to help you get through life's ups and downs, with things like meditations to help you work through your stress and anxiety, boost your focus, build healthier habits, and take care of your physical well-being. They also have sleep stories, sleep meditations, and calming music to help you drift off quicker, grounding exercises for when you're feeling overwhelmed, and expert-led talks to help you through things like grief, self-esteem, and more. I love how much the Calm app has to offer. I can't sleep, I absolutely love the sleep stories, but in moments like these, I really adore the daily calms. They're 10 minutes long and they really help to center me and prepare me for the day, especially the past few days, which have been extremely stressful. I'm really leaning on the Calm app, and I love that I feel like I never run out of content. There's always something there that speaks to me. Calm puts the tools you need right in your pocket and can help you dedicate a few minutes to a happier, healthy life. For my viewers, Calm is offering 40% off a Calm premium subscription if you go to calm.com/ChandlerA. Again, go to calm.com/ChandlerA for 40% off unlimited access to Calm's entire library. That's calm.com/ChandlerA. Thanks again to Calm for sponsoring this portion of today's video. Now let's go ahead and get into my best romances of the past decade. We're starting back in 2015 with The Deal by Elle Kennedy. The start of the decade, I feel like, really shows us how far we have come in terms of what's popular and what has been winning Goodreads Choice Awards, frankly. We've had billionaire romances in 2015, Colleen Hoover, some truly awful indie new adult. That's kind of what was dominating, I feel like, at this time. It was sort of a weird transitionary in-between period. I feel like before this, we had some pretty solid stuff, if not necessarily aimed at the millennial demographic. After this, I feel like we've had some really incredible stuff, but the 2010s, like the early to mid 2010s, was sort of a weird time for romance, and when The Deal came out, I feel like this marked sort of a new beginning for new adult. Again, Colleen Hoover, I think, kind of falls into that new adult category. They also have things like Beautiful Disaster, which was not a book that I particularly enjoyed, but then The Deal came out, and I remember picking this book up, not in 2015, I think it was 2016 or 2017, but I am going by publishing date for all of these. I remember being so amazed that there were romances being published, my age demographic, that had characters who were also in college. Not only that, but this book holds up so well over time, save for a few potentially misogynistic jokes depending on like how you read them. This book is about Garrett and Hannah, and it's the first book that I ever saw do the trope of the plucky, book-smart heroine tutoring the dumb jock in college. Loved it. I really loved it in this book. Kind of feel like it's still the best representation of this trope that exists, but again, this book stands apart from a lot of the other stuff that was published around this time. And I'm not saying that every book that was published in 2015 was misogynistic or whatever. I do think that Elle Kennedy does a really good job in this series at having these strong heroines who have been through, in some cases, really challenging things like SA, and have heroes who are supportive of their healing journey, aren't like weird alpha, I can fix you kind of people. I really love this book. It was kind of a no-brainer that this would be my pick for 2015. Not to mention the fact that when I was trying to find books for this, I went to my read shelf on Goodreads. I sorted by 5-star reads, and then I tried to look at publishing date, and there really was not a lot from 2015 that I was like enamored with. I think 50 Shades might also come out in 2015, or maybe it was like the Grey's side of things, Grey, like maybe that one was nominated. One of them was, and this was definitely a standout, a bright spot in the year 2015. Okay, now we are addressing 2016. 2016 was an okay year for romance. I wouldn't call it spectacular. Definitely gets better as we continue on through the list. So much so that for some of these years, I had to narrow it down between like 5 books, and that was really challenging. For some of these years, it was challenging to find one book that I liked. 2017, not to spoil things, is the year that was really hard. 2016, I had 2 that I was sort of like not sure about. The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, I would say, is maybe the most enduring book that got published in 2016. This book, I feel like, still gets recommended to people to this day. Even upon reading it for the first time, I wasn't wowed by it, right? Had It Ends With Us, which I guess got a movie recently, so that's also kind of enduring. And then there was another Elle Kennedy book in the Off Campus series getting published. I didn't want not to repeat any of the same authors. Also have Mariana Zapata publishing The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. That's still not a favorite for me. And selfishly, the point of this video is to share my favorite books of the past decade. And this one I would say is potentially the most controversial. It's Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. This book was so special to me because it spoke to part of me that had been in some ways long buried. There was something so special about coming back to reading in this time period for me. I think I really got back to my love of books in late college, which for me was like 2016, 2017 time period. And picking this book up not only rekindled my love of books, but also just spoke to a part of me that had long been forgotten back in middle school. Part of me that was kind of like an emo scene kid who really loved Twilight. He's craved someone like admitting a crush they'd had on me for like a really long time. I don't know. 57 just spoke to that part of me. It also awakened my love of the pen pal trope, and for a temporary time, for a limited time, love of a bully romance. So anyway, Punk 57 is about Misha and Ryan. Misha, Ryan have been pen pals since about the 3rd grade. They got assigned this project to send letters back and forth to someone in like the next town over. When the project was over, these two liked messaging each other that they decided that they would continue this. The only catch is these two agreed never to look each other up and never to try to find out the identity of the other person. What they looked like, what school they went to, that sort of thing. Which proves challenging whenever we have Misha transferring to Ryan's high school and he is kind of shocked at who Ryan really is. She has this like sweet, gentle, understanding spirit in her letters, but in person she's a bitchy cheerleader and Misha is not having it. He is really shocked at what a poser she is, and so he bullies her. And to be fair, she kind of bullies him back. He's also kind of taken with this like sexy stranger. She doesn't know his identity at the beginning of the story, that it's been the person she's been sending letters to, and it is just so juicy, fun, so different than anything I had ever read before. And it is, of course, not without problem. I mean, it's a bully romance, it's a new adult romance. I think those two are not necessarily synonymous, bully, problematics, but this book I would say is not without issue. That being said, I really, really adored it. The message of what you show to the real world versus the person that we are inside. Something that hit so hard for me post-grad, but also probably would have just as hard in middle school. It's not perfect, but it is, in fact, so special to me. Okay, like I kind of mentioned, finding books for this video was a bit of a mixed bag. For later years, so many favorites. For the first couple of years, not so much. And 2017 in particular, I didn't really like any of the books. I looked through the Goodreads Choice Award nominees and I looked online at some of the getting published in 2017 lists, and I did see some really, really good historical romances, some paranormal romances. White Hot by Ilona Andrews, that got published this year. I think some of the more popular Tessa Dare books, The Duchess Deal, I think that one came out this year. There were definitely good books being published, I'm not saying there weren't, but as far as contemporary romance goes, 2017 was a little bleak. So my selection is one that I gave 5 stars to. Don't know that I would give 5 stars to it now. It's not really my kind of thing, but I do think it speaks to what my reading was like in, I would say, 2017, 2018, and 2019, which really focused on KU and indie romance. It was diving into that world that I had never explored before. Lessons in Corruption by Gianna Darling was one of the books that I remember really, really enjoying. She has such a way with writing that I think showed me that indie romances can be just as good as trad published romances, right? So you've got Cressida, you've got King. He is the son of a motorcycle club president. Our heroine is a teacher who's like very young in her 20s. King is 18. They have this like chance meeting before the school year starts, before King's senior year starts, and they have this like unexplainable bond, this connection. It gets a little complicated and tricky when Cressida ends up teaching King. He is one of her students. It's a little scandalous. You've got that age gap element to it. And now that I'm 30, I'm not as drawn to these age gap romances. I'm not saying that with maturity comes not enjoying age gaps. It's just like a personal thing that I'm not as into now. At least age gaps done in a particularly taboo way. I can admit that this is a pretty well done book. I do still really enjoy the series. It is kind of like a guilty pleasure series for me. I think I have like the first few books behind me somewhere, all in paperback. I think this was like a really interesting, transformative book series for me in terms of it showing me like, wow, some amazing Kindle Unlimited romances out there. I'd say 2018 and 2019 are actually some of the last good years of the Goodreads Choice Awards, which feels a little weird. You would assume that the Goodreads Choice Awards would get better over time. We would get more diverse nominations. You would be incorrect. I do think that 2018 and 2019 are some of the more transformative years of romance, at least in recent memory to myself. Because look, Emily Henry, mixed feelings about her books. I can respect her as an author, but I like to see some variety in the Goodreads Choice Award winners, and I feel like we had Colleen Hoover dominating in the late 2010s, and now we have Emily Henry dominating year after year after year in the Goodreads Choice Awards. But for a moment, for a brief glimmer, had some really great stuff winning the Goodreads Choice Awards, and I thought that was meaning that we were going in a different direction, okay? But I guess that's not true. There were some really good books published in the year 2018, really phenomenal romances. We had From Lukov with Love published this year, Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, Jasmine Guillory's debut novel The Wedding Date, and also K.A. Tucker's smash hit The Simple Wild. I don't know if y'all remember that one. I guess it hasn't been that long, but it feels like such a long time since I've heard anyone talk about it. But yeah, there were some definitely good romances being published, and any of these I think could have been a good choice for my winner, but I went with The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang for this one. Not only because it won the Goodreads Choice Awards, but because I think it exemplifies where romance is heading, or at least was heading. I like to be optimistic and say that we're going to have a resurgence of more diverse books getting published. Anyway, this book is about Stella, who is in sort of like a very mathy sort of profession. She kind of keeps her head down, she kind of keeps to herself, but she does want to experience love, which is not necessarily challenging because she's autistic, but she has had people take advantage of her because she cannot read social cues maybe as well as other people. Now, being the pragmatist that she is, she ends up hiring a love coach who she thinks can help her figure things out, both sexually and romantically, and she ends up falling for her love coach, who is this Vietnamese, Swedish, just dreamboat who makes her feel seen and validated. I absolutely loved this book because even though there are harder moments in the story, it still has this levity that I really, really appreciated, and I think this is the first book that I ever read with an autistic main character, and to see this book win a Goodreads Choice Award, again, it just, I don't want to say warms my heart, but it warms my heart. It does. It warms my heart that this book won, and again, I hope that we get back to that place. I don't want to say the same things over and over again, but I do need to reiterate that I think that we're going in not a great direction with the Goodreads Choice Awards and the books that are popular. I mean, I like some of the books that are popular, but I think that we, we're making some strides and then we're not doing so hot these last few years with the diversity. Okay, like 2018, 2019 was a really great year for romance, and we also continue to see more diversity in the mainstream. Looks like The Bride Test, Aisha at Last, The Wedding Party are all really popular and were nominated for Choice Awards. 2019 was actually my first year doing my annual Goodreads Choice Award video. I do have a particular fondness for the year 2019. Now, if you go back to that video, you might notice that the winner slash my favorite book from 2019 is actually The Bride Test by Helen Huang. I liked that one actually more than The Kiss Quotient, but again, I don't want to have repeat authors on this list if I don't have to. And White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston I think was really a game changer in a lot of ways. This book follows the first son of the United States, Alex Claremont Diaz, and his relationship with, I believe, the grandson of like a British monarch. Can't remember if it was a king or a queen when this book was published. Prince Henry. This book is just a wildly good time. I think most people have read this book at this point. I mean, frankly, I think most of y'all have read most of the books that I'm going to talk about. Maybe a contrarian, but I do like what's popular. Anyway, what I've noticed about books published pre-2019 is, again, the focus in the traditionally published romance space on people in their mid-20s and beyond, people who are well established into their career. Sure, we do have occasional deviations like Beautiful Disaster or The Deal, but I think that this was really the turning point when I started to see traditional publishers more interested in publishing books for a younger age demographic. This book is about college-age people trying to figure their lives out, which makes it such a standout that really paved the way for many others that have come after. I especially love the way this book is written too, with the text exchanges. It's just amazing. There's so many laugh out loud moments, and I really do think this book stands the test of time for a reason. All right, 2020 was a really interesting year in publishing. I think we were still seeing diverse romances getting really popular, being nominated for Choice Awards, but I think the big change in 2020 was the first hints of romantasy sort of coming to the forefront, right? I wouldn't say 2020 was like the year of romantasy that it kind of took off, but this is when we started seeing it sort of trickle in, sort of like, I guess you could say, The Deal sort of paved the way for a lot of sports romances, or Red, White, and Royal Blue, more queer romances, that sort of thing. But From Blood and Ash was actually the winner of the 2020 Goodreads Choice Awards in the category of romance. This is before they had a romantasy category. I feel like I'm aging myself by saying that, but I think you understand. This book took the world by storm in some ways. Maybe not as big as like Fourth Wing, but it definitely laid the groundwork. Having said, my winner is of course not From Blood and Ash. I did not adore that book. I think it got like 4th place for me whenever I was doing the Goodreads Choice Awards, and I think the reason I ranked it 4th was because I did the video a little bit differently back in the day, but anyway, it doesn't matter. My winner is Talia Hibbert's Take a Hint, Dani Brown, because I could not make this video without including at least one Talia Hibbert book on the list. Not only is she supremely talented, but her books make me proud to be a romance reader and someone who gets to be giddy talking about romance on the internet. This one is about Danica Brown, who is a professor at a university, and she does not have the best luck in love, getting dumped by a long-term partner at the very beginning of the story, or not being very emotionally available or emotionally intelligent. And this proves challenging because she ends up getting firemen carried out of the buildings that she works in by a really hot security guard named Zaf, and she needs to pretend to be in a relationship with him. I don't want to say for social media, but their moment kind of goes viral, and they're going to capitalize on this moment and potentially get some really good money towards Zaf's charity that he runs, which is charity to get kids involved in sports and also talking about their feelings. Dani's like, okay, I guess I gotta do it for the kids, and I also kind of don't really want to fall for this guy, but like I'm let's be honest, I'm going to because he's great. This book was just such a game changer to me for so many reasons. I think that this was the first book that I really read. I saw amazing mental health representation on page, especially as it pertains to men in romance. And I've read many more since then, which is incredible to say. I really do think this was the first hint that I saw that this was going to become more commonplace. I love that. Like, I hope to see more men picking up romance in future years, maybe realizing, oh wow, that guy's going to therapy. Maybe I should go to therapy. That is pro number one of this book. Additionally, the way in which Talia Hibbert writes her sex scenes and talks about sexuality is so refreshing. Everything that she writes is so real and realistic, and she has her characters be so communicative in these sexual encounters. I feel like often books published like pre-2020-ish, you'll see sex happen, and maybe consent is not always as clear as we'd like it to be, or desires are not talked about as candidly. And in Talia Hibbert books, you best believe the women are going to tell you what they want, and it does not make the books any less sexy. Not that sharing what you're into makes things less sexy, but just so beautifully integrated into the sex scenes in books. It's stunning. It really is stunning. I talk often about being burnt out by smut, and while I wasn't when this book came out, see how this book does a really good job at making something feel so hot and so sexy without having like 15 novel sex scenes, right? There's something beautiful about people just connecting and having the sex scenes be a vehicle for that. And that's often Miss Talia Hibbert because she does that every time. Now, 2021, we're getting hotter. Y'all, there were some really great romances being published in 2021. We had Actor Age Eve Brown come out, which is my favorite of the Brown sisters trilogy. We had The Love Hypothesis, the first Allie Hazelwood book, come out. 7 Days in June. Hello, incredible. Charm Offensive, The Dating Plan, and these were just Goodreads Choice Award nominees, mind you. Like, there were so many good books published in 2021. And the two books that were nearly an impossible choice for me were People We Meet on Vacation, It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. And I think if I were going to say which is the more enduring romance, which is the one that I have a fondness for, I mean, I have to say it's probably People We Meet on Vacation. But that being said, the winner for this year is It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. I also think this book is pretty representative of the shift I started seeing at the time of really smutty romances coming into the forefront of being traditionally published now. I hesitate to say that because the last time I did had the old guard of romance readers come to tell me that books have been smutty from time immemorial, and I'm well aware of that. I've been reading romance for a very long time, but I do think the pendulum tends to kind of swing in both directions when it comes to the outward smuttiness in traditionally published books. And I also have to say there's a difference between something being smutty in the 80s and them talking about her like swollen pearl and the moments that we get in this book, for instance, with the finger popping of manholes. Anyway, this book is about socialite Piper, who is living a very charmed existence, being funded and supported by her stepfather until she gets in trouble with the law. She is shipped off to live at her bio dad's bar that has kind of gone into disrepair, and Piper is going to fix it up, live above this bar, lest she never have access to her stepdad's money again. While she's there, she ends up meeting a crab fisherman named Brendan, who doesn't want to see this bar change at all. He's very gruff, very grumpy, but over the course of the story, he grows to appreciate Piper's personality as it continues to grow and as she continues to change. This book is an absolute wild dichotomy, which I think is part of the reason I love it so much. On one hand, it is a silly, spicy read with sex scenes that make even a seasoned romance reader blush. I mean, that is what made Tessa Bailey popular in the first place. On the other hand, it is a shockingly sincere story with character growth in abundance for our main character, Piper. It might not have the pining and the yearning and the friends to lovers excellence that People We Meet on Vacation does, which is far and away, I will say, my favorite book from Emily Henry. But this book is so singularly unique and memorable to me, and I think it really defined the year 2021 for me, so it has to be my top pick for that reason. Things are getting harder and harder over here. I think 2022 might be my favorite year of romance releases this decade. I have two favorite Allie Hazelwood books, and one of them was published this year, Love on the Brain. You also had Abby Jimenez's first book that really made me an Abby Jimenez stan, Part of Your World, but nothing, and I mean nothing, tops Kennedy Ryan's Skyland series, which kicked off this year with Before I Let Go. A truly remarkable and romantic book about coming back to lost love. This book was kind of published at a weird time for the Goodreads Choice Awards. I think it was published a little too late to be nominated for 2022. It was also published too late, I guess, to make it into the next year's Goodreads Choice Awards. Like, people had forgotten, not that the book had been published, but, you know, people were thinking of like more recent books for the 2023 Goodreads Choice Awards, and honestly, most of the progress made in the Goodreads Choice Awards and the nominating of diverse romances kind of been reversed at this point. I think like 2022, 2023, 2024, it's kind of bleak, and the winners are, I think for these 3 years, all Emily Henry. No insult to Emily Henry, but I do think there are better books published, namely this one. Before I Let Go is about Josiah and Yasmin, who were married for many years, had a really strong relationship until the loss of one of their children. Now, a couple of years later, they are divorced, they are co-parenting, they are running a very successful restaurant together, and now they're both comfortable and willing to start dating again. As they start dating, they realize that they might still have feelings for each other and feelings that they want to explore now that they have some separation from their trauma and from each other, right? In the time period they were together, they had a really hard time communicating how they were feeling with their grief and with their loss, which is totally understandable. But now years later, they're like, wow, maybe we could work. Maybe we could work through this. Maybe we could potentially get back together. I have to say, when I talk about this book and when I share the plotline of it, it does not sound the most thrilling, but that is the magic of a Kennedy Ryan book. The plot lines are never going to be thrilling. You are going to be enthralled the entire time because these are real stories about real people who you could know. Like, these people are so well fleshed out. Their personalities, their idiosyncrasies, and how they interact with each other. It is absolutely stunning to see. I think the best way to describe her books is triumphant, because she makes her characters go through hell, but they're going to come out of it on the other side with one of the deepest, most romantic bonds possible with the person they end up with. And I think nothing reflects this better than this book about a married couple who couldn't make things work because of the things they'd been through together and how they like come back to each other. It is sublime. It is perfect. It is beautiful. I feel like if you haven't picked this book up, what the hell are you doing? 2023 was another great year for romance. Not quite as good, in my humble opinion, as 2022. It wasn't quite as hard for me to pick a winner. I am going to buck a little bit with tradition and pick a book that was not traditionally published. Kind of thinking maybe The Right Move by Liz Tomford, which I do think got picked up by Bloom at this point and is now technically traditionally published or hybrid published. I also really enjoyed The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I think that was my winner for the Goodreads Choice Awards this year. But the book that really stood out to me is actually an indie book. And I think this also kind of reignited my love for indies and wanting to dive deeper into indies, especially as traditionally published romance tends to be not publishing as diversely anymore. It's like really disappointing saying that out loud, but I'm not just the one saying it. Authors of color, it is queer authors who are saying that their books are not being picked up or not being given the same deals that they used to get. Getting back into indies really showed me that there is still incredible diverse stuff being published, and I just need to be better about seeking it out, okay? On the Same Page by Haley Cass is my favorite sapphic romance of all time, and it is absolutely my winner for 2023. This book is about two women, Riley and Gianna. They met back in college, and their friendship was not a friendship at the very beginning. They did not like each other. They were roommates who really didn't get along based on their upbringings. Riley had a very normal life. Gianna did not. Gianna was very bitchy and competitive and didn't understand how to be a good friend to people. Riley really showed her how to do that. After they've graduated about 10 years later, they are very close, very codependent, definitely probably already in love, but don't really recognize it. And I love the way the story is told because we do get flashbacks to how their friendship formed in the first place. It's so interesting because you're like, oh, these two are like this. They are like locked in. And then you get to see how their friendship actually came to be. And you're like, oh, okay. So y'all didn't get along at the beginning. That's fascinating to me. And I think in some ways actually builds a stronger foundation for the friendship and a romantic relationship that blossoms. But I love this book. I love a friends to lovers story when one or both of the characters is kind of oblivious. I love when there is eventually yearning and pining. I love the sort of fanfic tropey miscommunication that goes on. Not the bad kind of miscommunication, but the I'm like trying to tell you I love you, but I'm not communicating that well sort of thing. It's stunning. This book is stunning, and I want more people to pick it up, which is part of the reason that I selected it as my 2023 winner. Again, so many good books published this year, but this one sparked my interest more in indie. I will say I'm reminded of the fact that I haven't been good at following up and trying to find new and interesting diverse romances via Kindle Unlimited, but I'm going to for the rest of this year. I'm going to find some really good stuff for us. I will. And then lastly, for the year 2024, we have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. You knew that an Abby Jimenez book was going to show up on this list. I love Abby Jimenez, and no doubt about it, for me at least, Just for the Summer should have won the Goodreads Choice Award this year. I mean, Funny Story by Emily Henry is not a bad book, but it is nowhere near her best. So to see what is so clearly like the book of the year not win the Goodreads Choice Award was kind of upsetting to me. I feel like it is just Abby Jimenez at the peak of her game. It's either this, Part of Your World, but both are just phenomenal stories, like no notes, perfect. There are also some really great books that were published in 2024, and it was hard to narrow it down. We had Bride and Not in Love by Ellie Hazelwood getting published. Also, This Could Be Us, which is my favorite of the Skyland books. But I'm picking Just for the Summer because, again, I think it's maybe Abby Jimenez's best, and I also think that this marks a direction that I don't want to say all romance is heading in, but my romance reading is heading in, which is less smutty, more heartfelt kind of romance. Books that kind of straddle the line between women's fiction and romance. I never thought I'd get to that place, but I feel like that's where I'm at right now. Books that are deeply romantic rather than deeply smutty. This book follows Justin and Emma, big time millennials, who sort of have a meet cute on Reddit. Justin thinks that he is cursed because it seems like every woman that he's ever dated dumps him and then immediately finds the love of their life, the person they're gonna marry, and he's like desperate to break this curse. Emma feels like she has had similar situations, though for very different reasons, and these two decide they're gonna break each other's curses by dating each other for a limited time, right? And hopefully they can move on and find like the true one after. This works out perfectly because Emma is a traveling nurse, ends up showing up to Minnesota, which is where Justin is located, and they're going to date just for the summer. But things get a little bit complicated when Emma starts falling for Justin and Justin starts falling for Emma. When Emma's mother comes into the picture and that complicated relationship front and center, and Emma has to face some of her childhood trauma. And Justin is also going to be assuming guardianship of his younger siblings, and we get to see his grief there and his anger at his mom. There is just a lot to this book. It looks so frothy and so fun on the surface, but this book packs such an emotional punch, and I do think this is one of the first books that I really saw where the characters go through a lot and they are determined to become better people for each other. I think one or maybe both of these characters ends up going to therapy whenever there is, you know, kind of the third act breakup moment. They're like, you know what, we need to figure our shit out separately and independently, but I want to do that because I love you. That to me is just like the greatest, not the greatest act of love, but one of the biggest ones you can do is to like work on yourself to be a better partner for the person you're with. It just made all of the romantic moments even more special in the story. Book about loss, about parental expectation, what we expect from our parents, not what they expect from us, and about love conquering all, like first and foremost. I absolutely adore this book, and honestly, I'm even more excited to figure out what my favorite book of 2025 is going to be. This decade has been such an interesting one as a romance reader. I think that my tastes have changed quite a bit, I'm sure, as you can see, throughout the decade. I also think what's being published is changed as well. So many different subgenres getting popular. I think there was a time period when there was a pretty distinct focus on a certain type of contemporary romance or rom-com, and now we're seeing all kinds of different stuff. We're seeing cozy romances, murder romances like Butcher and Blackbird. We're seeing romantasy at the forefront. We're seeing so many different things getting popular, and it's a really beautiful thing to see. Romance and reading in general has been so popular since the rise of Book Talk and, you know, since 2020, and yeah, just to see where we've come from and where we're going has been so delightful, and I am looking forward to continuing to read romance for as long as I live. Not to be, you know, overly dramatic, but it's true. I will be doing this forever. Maybe not here on YouTube, but you know, I will be doing this, some form of this reading romances quite literally forever. So thanks for watching this video. I had such a fun time writing the notes for this video, figuring out what romances I think are the best of the past decade. I would like to know in the comments down below what your favorite romance of the past decade is, and if you know it offhand, maybe let me know what year that book comes from, and also maybe your thoughts and feelings on the state of romance. Like, do you think romance was better 5 years ago? Do you think romance is better today? What do you think? I'm very curious to know. Thanks so much for watching this video. I love y'all so much, and I'll see you in the next one.